Hello, welcome everybody to a very special edition of Story Trading. We got Phunware CEO Alan Knitowski here and COO Randall Crowder. We're going to get to them in just a moment, but first, just a couple of logistical things. Hold on, let me turn off that little banner that's flying down on the bottom there. All right, this is the first time we are live streaming both to YouTube and Rumble at the same time. We put a poll up there. The last interview we did was on Twitter Spaces. We asked people, should we do it on Twitter Spaces again or YouTube Live? And we got a bunch of people saying, do it on Rumble. So that's what we're doing. We're on Rumble and on YouTube at the same time. We will be taking audience Q&A through Rumble Rants or through Super Chats on YouTube. So you can start getting your questions in there or comments, or if you just want to support Rumble or Story Trading, you can put those in and we'll get going. So I'm going to start with Randall, I believe. Well, let me throw both of you up there. I know Alan and Randall, how you guys doing?
Doing well. I like that you listen to the people, Ben. You know, you giving power back to the people. That's what we're all about.
Amen. Glad to be here, and thanks for having us again.
Great. Glad you're here. So we're going to get started with just some opening comments. I don't know who's going to handle the opening, and then we'll get into Q&A.
Yeah, I'll do it. And then I want to, you talked about this before we started, Ben, but you're going to see Alan's avatar here because he actually got in a car accident today, and nothing stops an ex-Army Ranger from showing up. You got a bunch of people hunkering down at home and scared of things like COVID or just commuting to work, but nothing stops Alan. So he wasn't going to miss this for anything. So he is actively trying to manage a relatively destroyed car at the moment. So I'll kick us off and then actually have a question for Alan, and then we'll go into some questions from you, Ben, and then we can open it up to the group. But I wanted to start out by saying something. I think a lot of people that are newer to the story, when you kind of arrive on like Phunware's website or you hear a lot of our different interviews, a lot of times it's confusing for people. You always want to be a part of something that is doing something transformational, monumental. And then when somebody really does something transformational, it's like, whoa, you're doing too much. It's like, you bet your ass we're doing too much. We're doing a lot. And we got the team to be able to execute on it. And so, for more than a decade, Phunware helped large brands establish mobile ecosystems that were designed to better engage unique audiences by ensuring that every interaction was contextual. That's multi-screen as a service or MaaS. So you'll hear a lot of talk about that. That's where we got our start. More recently, we started to leverage blockchain technology. So Phunware now has the opportunity to deliver solutions that can not only authenticate and compensate who we're engaging, and that's this concept of PhunCoin, but also incentivize that engagement, this concept of PhunToken. And what we're doing is we're giving consumers better control over their data and their relationship with brands. If anybody's familiar with the industry, it's called a customer data platform, or CDP. Now, in order to fully realize this potential, we're commercializing a truly decentralized data economy that requires both a persistent mobile-first connection to consumers, PhunWallet, you go download it right now on iOS and Android, and you're going to need the infrastructure required to support what's called an Oracle network. So we just acquired Light Technology to deliver that functionality so that we're capable of managing not only consent, but delivering first-party data without the need for an intermediary. So that's a huge, swath of things that we do, but it's never been a pivot. It's never been a change. We're constantly trying to leverage technologies to better engage consumers. So if every product or service you buy ends up being Amazon enabled at this point, we want every experience, every interaction, every opportunity for engagement to be Phunware enabled. And we really want that to occur with a decentralized architecture behind it, because that puts consumers first. And just like Bitcoin's trying to disintermediate banks, we have the opportunity to disintermediate large data oligarchs like Facebook and Google, who really, aren't good for anybody. And we're seeing it right now. Obviously, I know we're going to talk about it later, but we're seeing it in the political sphere. The role technology companies have in affecting not only our illusion of free will, but even, our political system is really terrifying. And so there's a lot of things we can do to possibly change that, So I want to ask Alan, so Alan, you saw, when we first met, before Funware was even started back in 2009, you saw where the puck was headed. It was, we're going to bet the company initially on the fact that every brand is going to need a mobile presence, because every consumer is going to have a mobile device touching a network increasingly in the palm of their hand. So that's how we're going to really engage them. So what gets you now excited about blockchain and decentralization? We're skating where the puck is going again as the CEO establishing the vision. What about decentralization gets you so excited?
Yeah, thanks, Randall, and I appreciate the audience being here yet again. As we say, life goes on and curveballs happen. So good news, just as an aside, no, no bodily injury. Nobody is hurt, and all things worked out quite well. But a couple of pop tires, and life goes on. There's literally a salon off the frontage road here in Austin, off the freeway, that was kind enough to let me use part of the lobby and say, hey, you can stream from here. And I'm like, that's people are great all over the world. So I appreciate that. When Randall talks about this, we have such a passion for personal sovereignty, letting people be themselves, finding ways to reward people for being who they are. All of us are unique. And what we found is when we set up Funware years and years ago, remember the big vision was we wanted to create a Funware ID for every human being on earth that had a device touching a network through their favorite brands, venues, and applications that happen to run Funware software. And as we always say that's a really big goal. Like, how do you reach every human being on earth? When we first were trying to get funding, I think people thought we were trying to be wildly too ambitious. And whenever you're trying to be wildly too ambitious, people say, if you're going to try to be everything to everyone, you're really not going to be anything to anyone. So what we did is we kept to this vision. We started collecting Funware IDs. We started delivering wonderful software that were inside mobile applications and these experiences. We help people to engage those audiences, to manage them, to monetize them, to interact with them contextually on a one-to-one basis, whether it was indoors, outdoors, brand to brand, venue to venue, and we let you be who you are. We empowered people to be themselves, be authentic, be genuine, and to engage in brands and venues in any way they felt like for their own selfish interests. And as a result of that, over time, that get more and more Funware IDs, more and more data points, more and more interactions, more and more engagements between brands and users. And as we scale that globally, and now we fast forward to now, we have over 17 billion Funware IDs. We literally reach 1 in every 10 devices on the planet. These devices are things like smartphones, tablets, wearables, in-car infotainment, digital signage. And when we did all this, we realized that we needed distribution conduits for our software. We can do it through mobile applications on a business-to-business or business-to-government level, but we also said with cryptocurrency, with blockchain, and with PC hardware, high-performance computing, it gave us an opportunity to be able to distribute more software, create decentralized nodes all over the world that then could engage in our community. And now we're up to more than a petabyte of data. We're up to more than 5 terabytes of growth per day in that data. And on average, at scale, we typically see between 800 million and 1.2 billion devices per month, registering 4 to 5 billion transactions per day. That works out to roughly 300 to 500,000 transactions per second. And everything that we wanted to accomplish, we now have right in front of us. We can reach people through blockchain and cryptocurrency, where you have an authentic, immutable ledger that shows every interaction between users and between brands. And nobody can dispute it because it's on a public blockchain. So as Randall said, we have multi-screen as a service. We have a focus to reach everyone everywhere. And what we want you to do is to be able to control your own identity. We want you to control your data. We want you to not be exploited the way you're treated like a product for Google and Facebook and everyone else. We want you to be able to say, you know what? Here's who I am. This is what's unique about me personally. Here's what my interests are. Here's the kind of interactions and engagements I want. And once I have all that, I want somebody who's going to compensate me for my engagement with this brand. And so each step that we're taking, as Randall said, is based on a software platform. We call it an enterprise cloud platform for mobile. We tailor all of this to iOS and Android environments. And what we're doing now is whether you're buying hardware for gaming, streaming, trading, personal productivity, and high-end streaming, that's wonderful. You can have that, and that's a touch point. You can download your favorite applications from your favorite brands. That's another set of touch points. You can opt in with cryptocurrency and blockchain and have an immutable record through PHUN Wallet, which we encourage you all to go to Apple iStore and download. Go to Google Play and download. It's just called PHUN Wallet. When you download that, you can start earning for who you are. PhunToken, which is all about your engagement and all about your behavior. And PhunCoin, which is about your digital identity. And through each of these, we're going to find a way to create a global decentralized data economy, completely change who's in charge of all this data and information. And we're going to put you in charge of you as it should be and allow you to be genuinely, authentically you.
Great. Thank you, Alan, for those thoughts. Any other opening comments before I got a nice list of stuff to go over? You guys ready?
Let's jump in.
All right, great. So I know a lot of people are here, just like last time, Randall. Everyone wants to know about Trump World, and we will kind of get into that in a bit. But first, I want to ask you about something else. I want to ask you about higher interest rates. I know a lot of people may find this boring here. They come in for the Trump stuff, and for Phunware, but this is really important because interest rates are rising, expected to rise, and it's really damaging companies that are not profitable yet, right? Because of the possibility they have to access capital in the future, and it may be harder to do that, maybe more expensive. So I wanted to know if your company has given that some thought longer term in terms of cash management and just how you see that, if there's going to be any impact on your company regarding that.
Well, Alan, start with this one. I know he's been leading a lot of our efforts around cash management and treasury policy. And it's really something that every single leader and entrepreneur should be thinking about. But your audience members need to be thinking about it too. So let's have some personal accountability to what's going on in the economy. They should be even more interested in what's going on with inflation and the U.S. dollar printing. But I know it's a little bit complicated, so people shy away from it, and they'd rather focus on memes. So pay attention to what Alan says next.
All right, Alan, let's hear it.
Yeah, let me walk through this. So let's set the backdrop. The reason that Phunware has bought more than 630 Bitcoin, we probably have more than 1,100 Ethereum, separate from what we do with PhunCoin, PhunToken. The reason we do this and we're so aggressive about it is we are terrified of holding U.S. dollars. For those of you who don't know out there, over 80% of all U.S. dollars in the history of the United States of America have been printed out of vapor, out of thin air over the last 24 months. And right now you see our government, you see the Federal Reserve effectively in a checkmate situation. The checkmate situation is this. Inflation, they're saying, is 7%. I can assure you, when you look at the S&P 500 year over year and a bunch of other measures, inflation is really about 25%. Any of you buying gas, buying groceries, going out anywhere can see just how bad inflation has gotten. If you're paying higher on rent, you're trying to buy a vehicle, it's just out of control. So the real inflation rate and the cost of capital we look at is effectively 25%. Whenever they're saying 7, multiply that by 3 or 4 and you'll get into the ballpark. Now, separately, why do I say checkmate? The Federal Reserve is in an impossible situation and there's no way out for them. The issue is this. If they decide they're going to address inflation at whether the published rate of 7% or the reality of 25%, then what they're going to have to do is start raising interest rates. They've tried to signal the market, hey, we're going to start raising rates. We'll do it 2 or 3 times. We're going to end the quantitative easing, which is a fancy term for money printing out of vapor. And what they're doing, if they try to start raising rates, is they're going to kill the global economy. They're going to kill Wall Street and the stock market. They're going to kill risk assets. And even worse, for every 1% the Federal Reserve raises interest rates from zero, we're going to have to pay, as a country, $800 billion of incremental interest charges for each 1%. So imagine that. If they really had to get inflation in check at the published rate of 7%, they would literally have to raise rates by 7 percentage points. And those 7 percentage points would represent $5.6 billion dollars of instantaneous, $1 trillion in interest payments that they're going to have to go through. And so we think that you say checkmate because they can't raise rates because they can't afford to service the debt without printing more money and extending the ceiling even more. And the flip side is if they leave them low, you're just going to have hyperinflation replace inflation. And so the reason we have Bitcoin is the solution for this. Bitcoin is what is a store of value. It used to be just sort of this novelty that people had. And over the last 12 years, it's migrated from phase one as a novelty to phase two as a store of value. I think what you're going to start seeing for phase three is you're going to see a medium of exchange. Things like where you're seeing El Salvador adopting it as a currency, where Turkey may adopt it as currency, and other countries are going to start diving into Bitcoin. And then the final phase is where it would become a unit of measure. And with 100 million Satoshis representing one Bitcoin, it won't be surprising to see when all is said and done that $1 equals one Satoshi. And if you go past the last 12 years when Bitcoin first came out, it would have taken you 200 million Satoshis to come up with the value of a single US dollar. If you do that today, it requires about 1,750 Satoshis to represent a US dollar. What that means is over the last 12 years, the value of the US dollar has dropped 99% versus the value of Bitcoin. Even gold has dropped 95% versus the value of Bitcoin. So as Randall says, what we're going to do as a core part of our strategy, a core part of our identity, a core part of our treasury management is we are going to have Bitcoin at the core. We are going to actively operate in the DeFi world, and we'll get into more about that as people have interest. And any cash that we don't need to execute our business, to pay our bills, to pay our payroll, to pay for our facilities or our investments in new products and new technologies, all of that is going to be put into things like Bitcoin to make sure that we can preserve our purchasing power against the backdrop of hyperinflation.
Okay, all right, I got that. If you can add a little bit, though, in terms of, I know you use some of that cash position to be purchasing Bitcoin, but in terms of your burn rate and your cash runway, one of the things that if you're holding a risk asset here, again, if you have to go hit capital markets, that might not be fun. So what kind of guidance or assurance can you give retail investors that we're not going to be blindsided with some capital raise on bad terms? Can we avoid that? What's the financial situation of the company?
Yeah, well, I'll hit the first part of this and let Randall continue. The reality is that, when the US dollar is plummeting, the concept of debt is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, Phunware only has about 5 million of debt, and we'll be at zero, later this year, so that we'll be operating, we'll be debt free, and we'll have any options we want relative to debt, equity, convertible equity, and so forth. More importantly, we have not one, but two crypto ecosystems launching that we are literally the first company that's publicly traded in the history of the world. I don't say that lightly. And anyone who can find otherwise, please, dial in, let us know. But we've never seen any public company on NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange ever issue its own cryptocurrency. And we've done not one, but two, PhunCoin and PhunToken. And we believe that each of those, as we go live, are going to conceivably be 9-digit crypto ecosystems that we can then scale. And that's going to be additive to all Phunware shareholders. Now, relative to our capital needs, you're correct. We don't need capital over the next several years as a result of having a flush balance sheet, a core of Bitcoin that we can use as an asset. Ironically, lenders would like to provide money against the Bitcoin or the Ethereum we own because they value the collateral even more than they value dollars. If you can now imagine that transition, that's profound. You're seeing this where people are saying, hey, use your Bitcoin and we'll give you a loan to buy a house because we'd rather have Bitcoin as collateral than your dollars, than anything else that you want to put up. So for us, we don't have any needs that we have to raise capital. We will always make sure that we have the availability and access to facilities like shelf registration statements. The ATM that we had will always have those things outstanding because we're going to continue to grow organically, as we've said. We're going to continue to grow inorganically, opportunistically, as we find acquisition targets that are a good fit, help us enter new markets like Europe, South America, and Asia. But it's a wonderful position to be in that we don't have any need for years and years, but we have the ability to go execute in whatever judicious way that we see fit. And Randall can provide a little more context to that because he's been spending a ton of time with me on this issue.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, the question you just asked is the problem with most retail investors in crypto is that, they are trading with a 3-month horizon and they are putting themselves in positions to where they need to liquidate in order to pay rent or liquidate in order to pay taxes. And everybody's, just YOLOing into positions they have no business being in. We're not doing that. We know what we're doing. And so, we are not going to get caught with our pants down based on, some Bitcoin that we're holding versus, our operational runway. Not our first rodeo, a 13-year-old company, been doing this for a while, managed cash, very efficiently for a long time. As a lot of people remember, we didn't take any money when we went public. And so that was not a windfall for us. And so we know what it means to, know what you need and take what you need. And so, this is not something to where, we're going to blindside, our shareholders with bad terms because, we made some bad bet. Again, as Alan said in the very beginning of this, we've established, our operational runway. And then it's just, look, we got emails from, very large banks saying, hey, gee whiz, I see that you're sitting on about $60 million. Boy, do we got a deal for you. You can put it in this instrument over here and it'll yield 0.75% APY. Like, oh, gee whiz, really? Thanks. So anybody, who's investing in small micro cap stocks and their CEOs and COOs and CFOs are just sitting on cash, I would say they're breaching their fiduciary duty and they're not paying attention to what's going on.
Great. Thank you for that. I want to follow up, Alan, with a question on a comment you just made. But first, for those who are not familiar, because it's related to my question here, at Story Trading, what we try to do as a collaborative community is to analyze stocks based on what we call our 4 pillars, which is fundamentals, sentiment, catalysts, and technicals. So we look at everything. Sentiment matters. A lot of people are here because of sentiment. A lot of traders, they trade because of technicals or of catalysts, but we also look at fundamentals. So that's why I'm starting with some of those fundamental oriented questions. Alan, you just mentioned that by the end of the year, you're going to pay off that $5 million in debt. Is that just from other assets that you're going to use to pay off that debt? Or are you kind of telling us there's going to be positive cash flow there?
Yeah, so great question. So for us, we actually have cash on hand that allows us to pay off the debt. As I've said, that anything that we're not using to deploy for personnel, for facilities, for R&D, for technology, for infrastructure, we're either putting into Bitcoin, allocating it to decentralized finance, which is a whole different set of conversations we could have. But we expect that our yield from what we do with dollars deployed in decentralized finance, overlays with cash on hand, to your point, operations and contracts, we're going to eliminate that cash debt that we have. It's only $5 million. We, of course, don't really see any compelling reason to race to pay off debt because the dollars are like a melting ice cube. Not only have 80% of all dollars in existence been printed in the last 24 months, but typically the value of each dollar you have is dropping by 25% year over year. And so ironically, when you take debt and you wait your debt is getting cheaper as you go because we are diluting the US dollar so badly with the actions fiscally, monetarily, and legislatively in the United States. But that's really the punchline on it. We also believe that our work in decentralized finance, the yields and returns that we make are going to be extremely compelling. And much like people think of what MicroStrategy has done with buying Bitcoin and holding it as an asset and a strategy, we'll let them run with that. They're doing a great job. We too have it. We believe in the same thesis, but we'll let Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy run with that part. What I think we're going to run with is showing how decentralized finance becomes a strategic weapon for corporate treasury so that you can generate yield and returns without having to touch equity, debt, or convertible debt at all.
And Ben, one thing I'll add to that, I know you're kind of talking about, the company, just for our shareholders, look, Alan and I would imagine are probably some of the most accessible and transparent executives, around, at least so we're told. One of the things, we want people to understand is, we're focused on growth. So, we could be at or pretty close to break even this year for sure. And honestly, that's a pretty good target to grow from there, so, we don't necessarily need to be profitable to pay back, as Alan said, debt that is declining in value. We want to scale, and we want to scale in a big way. And a couple of things that I think a lot of shareholders aren't really paying attention to as it pertains to cash, and then ultimately what we choose to do with that cash is, one, PhunToken. So as a utility token, you can buy it now on buy.phuntoken.com. And we are, I think, the first public company to issue our cryptocurrency, a native, cryptocurrency. That is effectively 99% gross margin revenue. So obviously going to address, both cash positions and profitability. Flip side of that is PhunCoin. You got a security token. That's a balance sheet item because it is a regulated security token. You can only get that right now. It'll begin trading on Securitize. You'll need to be KYC'd. Think of Securitize as a blockchain-enabled TD Ameritrade. And so that's, although it's a balance sheet item, anytime we begin to sell PhunCoin under any registered exemption, that's going to be 100% non-dilutive financing. And then you have this other kind of speaking to what's going to happen this year. One of the things that I think we've been telling people, and it's still not really salient to people, is how we scale our software business through indirect channels. And so whether it's Carrier, $20 billion company traded on the New York Stock Exchange, whether it's HID, multi-billion dollar, access control, smart lock giant, whether it's Cox of broadband and internet fame, they're all licensing our software. These are billion-dollar companies that do not license technology lightly. And they're betting in a big way on what Phunware has and what our platform can deliver. So what we don't know, and what we haven't given guidance to the street on, is what is that activization timeline going to look like? How quickly are we going to monetize those additional channels? But it's happening kind of in real time this year. So 2 different, very unique digital assets launching right now. It'll be interesting to see. We could have 2 separate digital assets with market caps well above our public market cap. What influence is that going to have on our stock? We're going to have these indirect channels activating. And so there's a lot of exciting opportunities to address, and then some, all the needs we would ever have for growth, both organically and inorganically.
All right, guys, let's go on to the next topic. All right, this is going to be fun. I know a lot of people are here to talk about Trump world, and I'm not going to let you guys go without some sort of comments on it. So, last time, Randall, we were with you, I think you made a comment like people are coming for the...
Come for the meme and stay for the company.
Come for the meme and stay for the company. Got it, right? But I'm going to press you a little bit more this time because, look, since we last spoke, a few things have happened. Rumble is going public via CFVI. They purchased Locals. They just purchased Parallel Economy from Don Bongino. And we have this other company. There's a lot of speculation on AI advertising by Brad Parscale. I'm starting to get the feeling that in order for all of this alternative technology infrastructure to be successful, you guys have to work with each other. You have to find people who have the same sentiment as you. You're going up against big tech and a big political machine. And I see these deals happening among, friends and friendlies. And I assume you all know each other. I don't know. I'm assuming Don Bongino, Brad Parscale, all these people. For those of you not familiar, Phunware did make the Trump-Pence campaign app in the last election, and that's where a lot of the speculation started. So, I'm not going to ask you to break news today, but if you wanted to, gosh, we have 600 concurrent viewers right now. So I think you're probably allowed to say material info if you want, and then you can file your Reg FD later. Feel free to do that. But, I just want to, first of all, just a general comment on, this idea of finding people who are sympathetic to the cause, working with each other. To me, it just seems like that's happening and it needs to happen.
Yeah, let me say something, and I want to turn it over to Alex. I want to actually ask Alan to kind of tee up a comment, because I think a lot of people aren't privy to kind of some of the history here. But you said something very important, and this goes both in what we're doing in the political world, but also what we do across everything that we do. When we think about our software solution, which is just one line of business that we have, but when we think about our software solution in a mobile first world, we're not one mobile application to replace them all. We're one mobile application to rule them all. So almost every single customer that we have, there are numerous third-party players involved. There's numerous vendors involved. Our platform was specifically designed to manage complex integrations and ensure that everything remains interoperable. So when we launch a smart workplace solution at like Norfolk Southern, I think we have 27 different integrations. Somebody's doing access control, somebody's doing lighting, somebody's doing environmental, somebody's doing conferencing, et cetera, et cetera. And so just what you said is very important. Anyone trying to build any complex ecosystem that has a bunch of different moving parts, a platform like Phunware gives you the architecture to make it all work seamlessly on a mobile first platform, which is, is table stakes at this point, because we live in a mobile first world that's quickly becoming mobile only. And so stepping back from that, if you think about what we did in, the presidential, we didn't do the content, we didn't do a lot of the data, so we partnered with Brad Parscale and Nucleus, and Nucleus was actually brought the data to the table, and then we brought all of the mobile engagement, all of the solutions to kind of make that form factor work. Data's useless unless it can be served up and made actionable. And so that's a very important kind of, I think a lot of people miss that when you think about American-made media company and what everyone was actually doing. And so, what we're giving is that form factor, that platform that ties it all together. But to your question about kind of the like-mindedness, less of a political rant, but just more about control and self-sovereignty, I want to turn it over to Alan.
Yeah, and so as we go through some of the history of all these things, you're very right. Like, we're really proud of the work that we've done, across every vertical. Many of you don't realize CBS, NBC, Turner, NASCAR, the NFL, Circuit of the Americas, Formula One, the Summer Winter Olympics, WrestleMania, the WWE Network. Like, our roots are in media, entertainment, and sports, and that also includes news. Obviously, I can talk very easily about public information, and then I can provide a little bit of context around. You're not incorrect to say, do we know who these people are and what they do and where they fit? Of course so. I mean, it's impossible to work for years with Brad Parscale as the President of the United States campaign manager, go through the whole process, launch things. As Randall said, Parscale Strategies is now what you're referencing as AIAD. That's, very public. Everybody knows about that. Brad deals with Nucleus now. That's fairly well known as well. And then a lot of the stuff on TMTG, I mean, look, we were a company that went public going through a SPAC. Right now, that whole group is in what amounts to a quiet period while they're trying to get an effective date for a registration statement. We went through the same thing. In our case, it took us 8 months, including not only working with the traditional Securities and Exchange Commission groups, but we also had to work with their new blockchain and cryptocurrency groups. We were the guinea pig. I think we were the first company that ever had to go through that process with that new group because it never existed before we did it. And so we keep kind of trailblazing, but while you have a SPAC, whether it's Rumble on one side, TMTG on the other, most of the operational executives and most of the relationships and things that happen, none of that's going to be discussed ever for any reason until everybody is done with their SEC filings, till mergers are closed, financings are completed, and activity moves forward. We went through the same thing ourselves. We like to talk and be very open and transparent. And, Randall and I know what it's like to have to just sit there and be quiet for months on end and quarters on end, because that's how the process works. And we always respect that. That's very important. We're proud that, we were the only technology that was never hacked during the presidential election. I can tell you, we back in the day, you get about 3 million attempts per hour to hack systems when you're tied to that level of high profile. So right now, I would say it's fair to say we do know all these folks. I mean, even look at TMTG, the whole management team has been placed in the last 2 to 4 weeks predominantly. There's the management team in the group that operates on one side. There's the SPAC, which is operating on the other side in trades, and that's what you all talk about with DWAC. And so all these things, like when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, this is about avoiding censorship. This is about sovereignty. This is about human beings doing what the hell they want, whenever they want, within the confines of the law, period. And when you start having every major tech platform start canceling people, start throttling people, start censoring people, every single system from Apple, from Google, from Facebook, from Twitter, every one of these are being completely managed at the expense of, sad to say, one set of political beliefs versus another. When we started Phunware, we used Amazon AWS extensively, and we can still touch the infrastructure. As Randall said, we integrate to everything. But along the way, we realized that we needed to have our own sovereignty. So we bought and deployed all of our own equipment in our own data center so that there is no way to sort of pull the plug, so to speak. You can't go like what you saw with Parler and just magically AWS pulls a switch and magically it disappears. So I think what you're going to see is, if you use an analogy like, I don't know, Fox News might be a good one. Back in the day when that network and that channel, that content, those shows were getting set up, they kind of said, look, we can actually be one of hundreds of networks and hundreds of channels. And we can cater and fight for the same audience, which represents about half the United States. Or we can let all those folks fight amongst themselves and launch Fox News and just try to win one group, which represents 50% of the country. And what it seems to be, from all the public things that have gone out with TMTG, is they have a 3-step approach. Step one, they're launching soon, and they'll be out there with a social replacement to what Twitter and Facebook do. Step two is to have a replacement for Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix. Step three is to have a replacement for Azure, which is Microsoft, the cloud from Google, Amazon AWS, and all the other infrastructure providers. And that's a very comprehensive tech stack. The thing that we do well is mobile and everything tied to mobile infrastructure. And what we do is make sure that we have sovereignty over all the choices, all the decisions, all the content. So it's great you're on Rumble today. That's fantastic. It's uncensorable. Maybe this stays up on YouTube. Maybe it doesn't. I have no idea. But the fact that we're even talking about that is disgusting at this point. So you're correct that what we're going to do is always align ourselves for the benefit of our customers and our partners. And we're going to provide that sovereignty and that flexibility and that optionality. And we know what we do very well because we've already proven it on the largest global stages that ever existed. In politics, that's the presidential election. Outside of that, it's things like this year's men's and women's World Cup, things like the Super Bowl and WrestleMania. So we're going to do the same things we do. And you have to understand that a lot of people that are out there, a lot of customers of ours that are extremely large, are also very quiet.
He might have dropped out, but yeah. So I mean, what he's saying is spot on, because we've actually had this happen, poorly. So as a public company, you're always wrestling with Reg FD and what to say and what not to say. And anytime we're selling to like enterprise customers, you start wondering like, well, wait a minute, like if we train their sales team, if their sales team know about it, should we now make it public? But in the contract, it's saying you can't say anything public. So, when we were doing, I don't think a lot of people realized if you downloaded a Fox mobile application, that was funware. We designed it, we built it, we supported it. It was entirely funware. It wasn't like we did one little thing or we, made some artwork for them. It was funware branded as Fox. And we could absolutely not discuss that with anyone. Honestly, I don't think they really wanted anyone to know that this massive media company was relying on some small technology company in Austin to do all of their mobile ecosystem. We actually got in trouble, with Honeywell for this very thing. We had told them, look, we did this thing with you. We need to disclose it. And we got a bunch of legal nastygrams, and I think there's probably still something floating around on Twitter about like, wait a minute, no, because they ended up trying to buy a company. They actually ended up buying a company that was just, attempts to do a small portion of what we do. And I think they were worried that deal was going to get confused if they thought they were working with us. And they're like, well, what we said was true. I get that you don't want us to tell anybody, but we did, and we had to wrestle with their lawyers about it. And so, we're very, there's a time and place to disclose certain things, and there's always a balance between, Reg FD and then, some just basic contracts. And so, we are very transparent. We will absolutely disclose things, as soon as it makes sense to disclose things. And we understand, that's not always, the answer everybody wants to hear. But we're, again, we're not building this for any one cycle. We're not building this for any one bull or bear market. Me and Alan have known each other since 2009. We're building this to be a Fortune 100 company. I mean, what we're endeavoring to do is massive. And so I think, people are just going to have to bear with us.
That was very enlightening. I really appreciate those comments.
And I apologize that I got cut
Alan,
and then added back, but I'm here just so you know.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to move to Q&A in just a second. We have around 600 people and hundreds of comments coming through. So if you want to ask a question, you got to do it as a super chat. There's no minimum, just $1 if you'd like. Same with Rumble. By the way, that money goes to support Rumble and what they're doing as well over there. So with the, what do you call those things at Rumble? A Rumble rant, right? So you can do it through a Rumble rant or through a super chat. If you're a VIP member on in story trading, you can ask us over there as well. Let me see. I think there was a question from one of our story trading members, Niraj, who is a rock star. Oh, I did have a question. I'll come back to my own question in a second, right? So, I'm not even going to ask this questions because he answered it. It was all about, are you guys doing anything with Truth Social? But I want to give Niraj a shout out. He has been a master in due diligence in this kind of Trump sector and Trump stocks. So thank you, Niraj, for everything you do at story trading and all your collaboration. Let's see if we have any. I don't see any Rumble rants or super chats yet. So I'm going to go to my next set of questions here. So can you kind of give us an idea of what are the most kind of significant catalysts we can look forward to this year? Maybe break it up into first half and second half. Catalysts which can really take your, maybe inflect you to a better position financially. Anything coming up in the first half or the second half?
Yeah, I'll start, and I'll kind of go historically, and then I'll turn it over to Alan kind of as he thinks about 2022. We actually just had the whole team out at CES in Vegas, where we do our kickoff, and Alan can kind of lay out, vision and priorities, and we have all our VPs and above kind of talking about their operational plans and their roadmap and their milestones. But really we had great momentum going into that. So again, as I think I mentioned at the top of the hour, 50% revenue growth into Q3. We had over 100%, 100% revenue growth into Q4 was the guidance we put out. We have just a lot, $60 million war chest, going into Q4. So strong balance sheet, great volume and liquidity in the stock. Obviously, a great stock price appreciation, through kind of the second half of the year. Obviously, we had that wild swing that, had to settle back down. But we're kind of right now where we thought we would be when we went public, right around a $300 million valuation, $60 million in the bank, a lot of opportunities, but we're a way better company now than we were when we went public. We're way more operationally efficient. Our platform is, lights out. And so, as you think about being able to license mobile software the same way you would license a CRM from Salesforce, anybody, two Freds in a shed pounding away on a keyboard, building you a mobile app, they're getting 20, 30% gross margin. We're licensing mobile software to give you more features, more reliability, more scalability at 70, 75% gross margins. That's just one line of business. We're growing our data enriched media business, which is basically digital advertising. For those of you who don't know, those personalized advertisements, personalized content. We obviously have our digital asset, ecosystem with PhunCoin and PhunToken, and ruled by PhunWallet, iOS and Android. And then you have light technology, high performance computers, which will represent our Oracle network for what we're trying to build in blockchain. But also just along the way, it's great for the P&L. We'll be able to drive revenue and really be able to drive it profitably and scale that business. And it's a great target audience for us. Gamers, traders, content creators. And so, I think there's a lot of things going into 2022 where we have great tailwind. But Alan, what are some other items that excite you as CEO, kind of looking forward over the next 12 months?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that, when we finished all the way through probably Q3, call it, of last year, and despite all the great growth that Randall said, we've literally added 3 brand new streams of revenue. 2 of them are already live. The third is probably something that started here in Q1. But when you think about Phunware, there's kind of 4 lines of business that are core. There's the software as a service business that's around multi-screen as a service, our enterprise cloud platform for mobile. That's all the licensing we traditionally do and we talk about. That has existed before. We also have the app transaction business around traditional media and data budgets directly from companies and also through their agencies of record. So those 2 existed historically. And then now, as of Q4, we have 2 brand new ones. One is in the area of digital asset transactions, which are specific to the PhunToken sales. And Q4 was the first time that we actually had that included in our financials. And we'll look forward at the end of March to share that with everyone. And then the other one was post-acquisition of Light, which is our performance computing technology market. We actually didn't have that before Q4 either. And so what's great is we've announced this 50% growth, which is fantastic. We then supersized it, saying we're going to be up 100%. We put out guidance to 25 million, which was another 250% up from what we saw, within expected financial guidance of 2021 when we think about what's coming next year. And then this final thing that's going to start happening is DeFi, and the way in which we create new returns for our shareholders through the intelligent use of our treasury, our balance sheet, and our virtual assets that go along with our financial and our physical assets. And so all of those are going to provide a huge tailwind for us. Obviously, when you get into certain verticals, you're seeing a little bit different, and we expect that things like hospitality and healthcare are going to be full speed ahead as people are out there traveling and trying to get through a post-COVID environment, and they're operating as normal. Even healthcare is getting back to more elective procedures to go along with everything with COVID. And all these new areas of business for us are additive. While Randall mentioned the final part, which is net new, during COVID, we took advantage of setting up as many new indirect channels as possible. He highlighted Carrier, where we actually license location-based technology. They bundle it in their solutions as part of their smart workplace solution, and they have 100,000 customers around the world, and we'll be excited as businesses are coming back on board that they can do so in a safe, responsible way, and that every time they ship those systems, we'll receive a new customer and more revenue. In parallel, Randall mentioned Cox, where they white labeled and OEM'd our healthcare solution for patient experiences so that they can bundle voice, video, and data along with patient experiences and healthcare digital transformation solutions so they can go to market as well. While those are the ones that we've kind of mentioned, we have 2 new marketplace listings, which we didn't highlight, which will be net new for this year as well. One is the Epic App Orchard Marketplace, which is tied to all of our healthcare solutions. Epic is the largest ERP provider for healthcare groups around the world. And we will now have a listing that enables our patient experience to be consumable by all of their customers. And then the final one is if you go to the Amazon AWS Marketplace, you can actually find all of Phunware's multi-screen as a service offerings now available for all of Amazon's customers worldwide. So for 2022, literally anything in indirect software across Carrier, across Cox, across what we're actually doing with HID and Amazon and this new Epic relationship, all of that will be net new to our software business, which existed before. And then on top of that, in that existing data business, we now have all of these net new things: decentralized finance, digital assets, and a hardware business that's got more demand than we can even keep up with.
All right, great. Man, we got some questions rolling in. Do you have a little bit time to go over time?
We actually have a board call at 2, so we probably do need to keep it to the next
4 minutes. All
minutes.
right, here we go. We'll just the 2 real quick. All right, we got Michael. Thank you for the super chat. Donated us $5. Michael Cuth, why don't you have more sales jobs available in DFW, and love to do something with you?
I love it. We always, I always say we will find a job for type A players. And so if Michael is an A player and can get it done and has got some experience in enterprise sales, he can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So Randall Crowder, easy to find.
Okay, great. Got another one. I'm having a tough time putting it on the screen for some reason, but Martin Davies, thanks Alan and Randall for continued communication with shareholders. What do you think about potential stock manipulation in the overall market?
We hate it. Yeah. We need another hour show to bitch and complain about it, but unfortunately no one's going to do anything.
We will say that, we've seen an awful lot of the same things you all see. We can't stand it. If I was going to be really brutal of a comparison, it's as bad of what we see in Wall Street as what you see when you have folks in Congress that are actually actively insider trading and they don't have to worry about the rules on legislation that's in front of their desk. So, that all of these things have rules governing them. We just want the rules enforced. I know you do want the same thing. We're active on trying to make sure that, the shares traded in our stock are actual real shares. And we've gone through, waves of, hitting circuit breakers. We've hit Reg SHO for naked shorting. As Randall said, we could talk for hours and hours about it. We do actually monitor this. We do file complaints. We've had formal complaints on file. We'll never stop doing that. We just wish there was a bit more enforcement rather than allowing things to happen. We know and share your frustration when our stock trades up and the circuit breakers kick in. It magically never seems to kick in the same way if it trades down. That too is a problem. we need to have two-sided markets, and they need to be fair, open, and transparent.
I would say I learned this at trading crypto on Coin. I didn't use Coinbase often, but when Coinbase was growing, it would have the exact same things. Not manipulation, hopefully, maybe it was, but every time you needed it, you couldn't get into it. And so, to quote Colonel Hannibal from the A Team, plan ahead. You assume, build out positions when you have time. Don't assume you can just jump in and catch a move right when it's moving in pre-market that morning. Assume you won't be able to log into Robinhood. Assume that when you want to sell, it won't sell. So I always encourage people to plan ahead. Understand stop losses, understand sale orders. Does your portfolio operate without you being logged in? Because when you need it most, all of a sudden, magically, you won't be able to access it. And then, like you saw with even Phunware, from what I hear, around 18, the world ended, and I'm sure there were people trading, behind the scenes. And then all of a sudden, for retail, voila, we're down to 10, and there's nothing anybody could do about it. We wish somebody would do something about it. No one will. So plan ahead.
Great. I just know our time is up. I want to share this comment I saw in here. It's from Cy Craft, putting my money into more shares instead of asking a question here. So I was very impressed with the presentation.
My man, Cy. Hey, LinkedIn, Randall Crowder, I'll talk to you one-on-one. We welcome to the journey, my friend.
All right, great. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to let you go because you got that board meeting. But hey, follow us subscribe to our channel below on YouTube. Turn on notifications. We'll have you back another time soon, Randall and Alan, I hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd love to do it. We enjoy these.
Great. Thank you. We got a great turnout today. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.